And I'm joined now by Coulter, someone I'm sure you recognize, author, speaker, television personality. Welcome to Phoenix.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
We got up a nice day for you, at least, didn't we?
Well, it's a little chilly.
Oh, I see. Yeah, you're expecting what, 80, 85, something like that? You have a real talent, don't you, for riling people up?
I do. It's a gift.
Oh, it's a gift, you're calling it. When did you first realize, when you said something that somebody said, whoa, and you said, hey, I might have something here. Was it as a child?
That's a good question. I mean, I suppose I should say I don't do it to rile people up. I just don't mind that they get riled up. I'm going to say what I think is true, and the fact that everyone is yelling at me is not going to make me back down or change my mind.
So you believe the things that you're saying here, all
Yes.
these things. Okay, good. So let's go over a couple. Your 11th book is Adios America.
My 11th New York Times
New York Times.
bestseller.
Okay, I'm sorry. And you spell out some things. Like one thing you say is, we've seen quoted a lot, 11 million illegal immigrants in this country.
Right.
You say closer to 50 million. That's the first I've ever heard that number. Where do you get that?
Yes, well, it's explained in only about 2 pages of my book, and I really recommend that people read the book. Donald Trump read it. It is setting his whole campaign, and now Ted Cruz is picking up on it. So if you want to understand what's happening, you got to read this book.
Okay.
It's short, it's sweet. It's shorter than it looks, 150 pages of footnotes. On the 30 to 50 million illegal immigrants, the 11 million figure we keep hearing, for one thing, I was suspicious because it's been 11 million for a decade now. What,
right.
Nobody's been coming? And if you look at it, all the groups are relying on the exact same surveys, which are census surveys, which depend upon illegal aliens answering questions.
Right, and they don't necessarily answer those truthfully is what you're saying.
So a few years ago, I'll try to make it not too boring, but like I say, if you want more details, it's in the book in just like 2 pages. Back in 2005, a couple of Bear Stearns analysts looked at this and said, you know, they're advising people about something important, their money, and said, this can't be right. These people, you know, have struggled, left their families behind, traveled in flatbed trucks to get to America. They're not going to answer it illegally. They're not going to answer a government survey. We're going to look at other things. We're going to look at remittances back to Mexico, money that immigrants here send to their families back in Mexico, and various other factors such as certain illegal alien hotspots, the increase in housing permits, and the increase in high school graduation rates or school attendance.
So you're basing it on those data.
Well, I'm basing it on their study.
Okay.
And in 2005, they concluded there were 20 million. Okay, then add to that these 2 Pulitzer Prize winning investigative reporters for Vanity Fair and Time Magazine, Bartlett and Steele. They have their own entry in Wikipedia. They're very impressive investigative journalists. They spent a year investigating this. In 2006, the very next year, they said, after spending a year at the border looking at this, that, and the other thing, they said 3 million illegal aliens are going to come here in 1 year. I underestimated that, assuming that some percentage of them go back. Assume instead of 3 million a year for the past decade, it was only 1 million a year. That puts us at 30 million.
You got all that in 2 pages of your book? That's impressive.
Yes, with more details. I'm sorry. I hope I'm not boring everyone, but people, you'll notice Donald Trump, God bless him, because he read my book. He never exceeds to the 11 million point. He always says, well, some people say it's more. I think they're right. Okay,
so let's say that there are just 11, lower, and you're saying, I saw a tweet that you put out just early this morning, and you said, looked at some ways deporting 11 million illegals in quotes is a bargain. So you looked at some ways to deport all the people that are here. I'd love to hear that, because as a journalist, I'm thinking, how could that happen? How could you round up and deport that many people out of the U.S.?
Well, first, the actual tweets I was sending out were tweets of which is what most of my book is, by the way. It's like Law and Orders and Forensic Files. It's all of these hideous stories of gang rapes, child rapes. I mean, different ethnic groups have different sorts of predilections for crimes. And I go through the various groups and the various types of crimes. And there, you know, there have just been these really heinous
and you were quoted as saying that Mexicans were more likely to rape children. Is that correct? Did I quote you correctly?
Thing. It's a big thing. You will find a lot of it, and you will find the media. The main point I'm making in my book is how the media hides it. This is why you'll always see these tweets, you know, like today. It was just from today. Montgomery man arrested for raping 6-year-old. And then, you know, you have to read down. Usually for a lot of the stories in my book, I had to wait for the court transcripts to find out they were immigrants at all.
But, you know, in fairness, naturalized citizens commit heinous crimes as well. I mean, you know, American citizens commit bad crimes. Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that.
Not my bad.
Not interested in them either. No, there are a few, but it would be like bringing in tribes of cannibals and saying, well, we have Jeffrey Dahmer. I mean, yeah, I think it's pretty clear this is much more common behavior. Look, with the Albanians, it's credit card fraud, Nigerians, credit card fraud, Russians, human smuggling. Look,
people might say
groups.
That's a very racist. That's racist talk from you. No? Because you're basically saying this race of people or this nationality of people commit these types of crimes.
Well, a predilection, yeah. And look, the point is, if you're going to be bringing, you think honor killings? Do we have honor killings in this country? Clitorectomies? Of course, cultures are bringing in different behaviors. And the point is, we are used to dealing with certain types of crimes. Look, all of the credit card scams, none of these are committed by the Medicare frauds. I have a page of the Medicare and Medicaid frauds. You will not find an American name in there, and the paragraph goes on for 2 pages.
Well, let me ask you again.
That was from 1 month, February 2014. My point is...
We're kind of meandering around.
No, but let me just get to the point here. America isn't prepared to deal with different kinds of crimes. We're used to dealing with certain sorts of crimes. And when you add up the cost, to get to your question, why deporting?
Not why, how. I'd love to know how.
But that isn't what I was tweeting about. So I'll get back to your question. But what the tweet was, it's a bargain to deport, whether it's 11 million or more likely 50 million. The costs, in welfare costs, immigrants, both legal and illegal, far more likely to be accepting welfare. How do you count the cost of the facial reconstruction surgeries, of the girls who've been raped at 6 years old, that the families destroyed by people murdered? For every immigrant criminal, that it just creates wave upon wave of destruction. How do you add up the money for that, for the English as a second language instruction, for the schools, for the hospitals? I mean, you could make some estimates, but with the media and the government hiding immigrant crimes, it would be hard to get a definite
We don't
number.
hide it here. We report it here.
I salute you for that.
On Fox and Phoenix.
I salute you.
And we also report citizen crime.
Well, everybody reports citizen crime. The way most newspapers, and it's described in my book, I mean, it mostly is an attack on the media and the government for hiding it. And it's, I mean,
I've never been told to hide anything
I have
in
a series
25
of chapters
years in this business.
Titled Spot. No, I'm not accusing.
No, I'm just saying, I hear that a lot. It's funny on Facebook too.
You.
You guys suppress this. Nobody's ever in my entire career told me to suppress anything, and frankly, I wouldn't do it if I was told to.
No, I think that's great.
So let me ask you really quickly, because we're running out of time. How would you deport all these people? How would you deport all the illegal
Now, as for the how, well,
yes.
As God bless Donald Trump, he mentioned it. Dwight Eisenhower didn't. We're using 1950s technology. I mean, everyone acts like, for one thing, there's a time limit. Well, no, you start your deportation force, you start deporting them, and they get the
you
message.
knock on the door? How do you find them?
Look up Dwight Eisenhower's. It was called Operation Wetback. He started at the border. The troops moved north. They knew the businesses and they knew the homes. They went in. They deported them. And by the way, Donald Trump, I mean, he's right. Yeah, you should go after the criminals. I'd go after the law-abiding ones to send the message. Law-abiding. They're not law-abiding if they're illegal immigrants. They get the message. And then you do what Mitt Romney was saying. Enforce E-Verify. Make sure only Americans can get jobs. They get the message. They leave on their own.
Are there any good illegal immigrants?
Well, wrong question. Under Dwight Eisenhower, for every one he deported, and he deported in the 1950s more than 1 million immigrants, 10 more left on their own. I think they'll get the message. Are there any good illegal immigrants or immigrants? That's not the question. The question is it good or bad for the people already living here, including immigrants who apparently decided to live in America and not Honduras, not Bangladesh. They wanted to live in America. I want to live in America. Apparently, a lot of Americans want to live in America, or Trump wouldn't be doing so well. Well, they're not going to be living in America if we don't stop the mass immigration from very different cultures, from the poorest of the poor from around the world. Why would any country bring in people who instantly need our taxpayer assistance? We ought to be bringing in people better than us, not worse than us.
I think most people would say that we do need to have some sort of a border policy where we can't have free access across our border. I think that's a very broad-based issue. But then it becomes, how do you deal with the people who are already here? Let me ask you about dreamers.
Support the
Let me ask you
ones.
about a 2-year-old who's brought across. America's all they know. South Phoenix or Tempe is all they know. And so do we drop them off?
Yes, their parents
We do,
can't
back in
cook.
Honduras.
We don't drop them off. We send them back with their parents. They didn't crawl across the border. They came with their parents. Their parents
But they're
broke
20
the
years
law.
old now. You know, they're not with their parents anymore.
Bernie Madoff's kids didn't do too well. If your parents break the law, you're going to suffer. It's awful, these kids whose parents are in prison. They have to grow up without fathers. That's terrible. Why don't you say, oh, you're separating families? You broke the law. You got to go home. We're not separating families. Take the kids with you. The kids weren't crawling across. They should have thought of that before coming.
And Coulter, you're going to be at the Future of Freedom Tour at the Scottsdale Center for Performing Arts at 7:30 tonight. So everybody can come and listen to you there.
Yes, hurry.
And you're good at riling people up because you actually riled me up a little bit today.
I don't think so.
Nice
I'm
meeting
praising you. You report everything.
Great. Thank you, Ann.
Thank you.